Welcome everybody to Forza Motorsport 6, and today we're taking a look at the 2015 McLaren 570S Coupé. Now, it's hard to see this car as anything more than a marketing exercise, which is something I'll get into later. But yeah, as you can see, it's pretty much similar in terms of the front, looking across between the 650S and the McLaren P1, though around the rear it gets completely different rear end there, yeah, as you can see. Which I'm a fan of overall, besides the brake lights. Yeah, especially like the part of the car where it goes through one another, like the Ford GT. And yeah, I like the black accents, etc. Yeah, really like the look of it from the back. Still got the same doors, still got practically the same interior. It really is pretty much the same as the 650S. But it has been made to be more suitable for the road, be more driver friendly on the public roads, etc. Unfortunately, we can't actually look at the engine in the car for whatever reason, but yeah, it still shares the same 3.8 litre V8 twin turbo from the P1 and the 650S, though it has less power than the 650S. It has 562 horsepower and 442 pounds-feet of torque, which, yeah, considering the 650S is obviously the better car, then this has just clearly been made to be less powerful and cheaper. Which it is, it's 50 grand, around £50,000 cheaper, so obviously this is for people that can't afford a 650S. But yeah, that would personally make it feel a bit hollow for me, the fact that you're buying a car that's cheaper and obviously worse. Because it is worse in every regard, quite frankly, to the 650S. It's got worse handling, worse braking, worse top speed, worse acceleration, and even though it does weigh a lot less, it weighs 132 pounds less than the 650S. That doesn't make up for the lack of power. It has 79 horsepower less and 58 pounds-feet of torque less. Now, obviously it's cheaper, so it does have that over the 650, but if you can afford to buy this at around 140 grand, I'm pretty sure you can afford the extra 50 to get the 650S, because it is a better car. And yeah, you certainly wouldn't me personally wouldn't feel happy about having such a thing. Even McLaren themselves have predicted that the model will help triple the company's volume by 2020, so yeah, it just comes across as something to satisfy accountants and stock holders, etc. Not something that is engineering perfection or as close as can be. But it is still a good car, and it is still a supercar, so we're going to take this out onto the track and see what it can do, so see you when we get there. Welcome to Brands Hatch. We'll take this car around on the first lap and talk through it on the second lap. So yeah, as you can see, it's a pretty solid car in its own right. 0 to 60, oh dear, 3.1 seconds, and 0 to 100 in 6.3 seconds, going on to a top speed of 203 mile an hour. Now, if this was the only car that the McLaren made outside of the P1, then yeah, it'd be perfectly great. But it's not, and it's hard to not compare it against the 650S, which is undoubtedly the better car. And yes, it does cost more, but it's worth that extra money, quite frankly, because yeah, that can do 0 to 60 in 2.916 seconds and 0 to 100 in 5.8 seconds, going up to a top speed of 204 mile an hour. That's half a second quicker to 100 than this. Half a second, and that's not exactly a small amount of time. That is a huge gap. And yeah, it's also worse in terms of handling, like I said, worse in terms of braking. And yeah, even though they have redesigned the rear end and it is lighter, it's just hard not to see it as anything other than a marketing exercise to fill a gap in the market, just like the Porsche Cayman, which kind of makes it feel hollow, to be honest. I mean, yeah, it does work as a supercar, it's quick, it does beat plenty of its rivals, but so does the 650S, and it beats its rivals, which are this car's rivals as well, even more convincingly, and even more in a way that, you know it's pretty much the best that McLaren can do outside of even more expensive P1. And I'm not going to give them an entire stick, because obviously they've changed it to some degree. Rear end, the engine has 30% of its parts redesigned from the 650S, but yeah, it's just feels a bit hollow, really. It's as good as you can expect from a car that's supposed to be worse than a car that's a lot better than it, but quite frankly, yeah, I'd rather go for the 650S. And if you want to really put a nail in the coffin of this car, it's got 30 horsepower less than the 12C from 4 years before this. So yeah, it's not even as good as a car that's nearly half a decade old, which, well, it's better than the McLaren 12C in terms of acceleration, but that car has way more power and a higher top speed of about 10 mile an hour on top of this. So yeah, it's really hard to see the point of anyone really wanting this outside of the fact that they can't afford a more expensive car, which, in the words of Jeremy Clarkson, just kind of highlights how your life hasn't gone quite as well as you'd expect it to be. So yeah, doesn't really cut it for me, but it's still decent in its own right, in its own little bubble. So yeah, you can look at it like that. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.